Welcome to the edge of reason, to the cliffside of truth, where the wind of silence screams louder than voices ever could. Welcome to the place where shadows become shields, and the fire inside you becomes the only light you've got left. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not a whisper in the night. This is not for those who ask permission to rise. You are here because the world whispered your name when your back was turned. And now, someone, somewhere, just went to war behind it. And you didn't even know. The room you walk into already knows your story. The eyes you meet have already made judgments. The silence you feel, it's not empty. It's filled with questions, assumptions, rumors, betrayal. Your name, it's not a name anymore. It's a battlefield. And somebody, without asking you, without warning you, just drew a sword in your absence. They declared battle. They wrote your name into a war script while you were still trying to write peace into your life. They spoke behind closed doors. They lit torches in your name. And when the fire reached your feet, you weren't even ready. But now you are. Because here's the truth. Every great person you admire, every story that left a scar on history, every voice that echoes through time, they all had a moment when war was declared on their name. Not their face, not their presence, their name, the echo of who they are. And in that moment, they had a choice. Stay silent and let the world write their ending, or rise, uninvited, and remind everyone that legends aren't born. They're built in fire. So now you stand at that threshold. You didn't choose the war, but you have to choose your weapon. Maybe it's your persistence, maybe it's your silence, maybe it's your vision. But hear me. Don't you ever forget that someone out there tried to define you without your permission. They used your name like a weapon. They thought your story was theirs to twist, and they didn't think you'd show up. They didn't think you'd hear the shots fired in your absence, but you did. And now, they called for a judge, because now, they realized they didn't just pick a name, they provoked a force. You. They didn't just light a fire, they summoned a storm. You see, war behind your name isn't just gossip. It's fear disguised as conversation. It's weakness wearing confidence. They speak because they can't stand the silence of your power. They move against you because they can't move without you. And when that war begins, you don't beg to be understood. You become undeniable. You walk into the courtroom of life not to plead, but to prove that your story isn't over, that your strength isn't borrowed, that your voice wasn't a whisper. It was a warning. And let me tell you something deeper. The war behind your name is proof that you matter, that your steps shook the ground enough to wake sleeping enemies, that your vision pierced the darkness in others, that your silence was so loud, it shattered fragile egos. Do you understand what it means to have someone go to war behind your back? It means you walked ahead. It means they couldn't face you. It means your presence outpaced their courage. And now they want to judge because they realize they fired bullets in a dream where you're bulletproof. This is where you learn to stand in the ruins of your name and rebuild it brick by brick, scar by scar. This is where you learn that your power doesn't come from being loved. It comes from being real. And if being real makes you a target, then be a walking bullseye, because the world doesn't honor those who were never challenged. It crowns those who were broken and chose to walk anyway, chose to speak anyway, chose to stay standing, even when everything around them screamed to fall. You don't have to explain your war to those who never carried your name with respect. You don't have to waste breath on proving why you matter. You're not here to convince them. You're here to outlive the lies, to outgrow the noise, to outlast the flames. Because when the smoke clears, when the crowd thins, and when the judge finally sits, truth doesn't need a lawyer. Truth walks in, and it silences every tongue that ever dared to twist your story. They will say you changed. Good, you did, you evolved. They will say you became cold. No, you became calculated. They will say you became distant. No, you became focused. Because when war breaks out in your name, you don't fight like them. You fight like someone who has already buried old versions of yourself. You fight like someone who knows that battles aren't always won with fists, but with faith, fire, and the force of your why. So let them talk. Let them plot. Let them gather in corners. What they didn't realize is that your silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. You let them believe you were out. You let them think you were broken. But they forgot. Diamonds are built under pressure, and legends are forged in fire. You are not your past. You are not their opinion. You are not the version of you they needed to feel better about their lack of vision. You are thunder walking. You are purpose breathing. You are the echo of something too strong to be silenced. And now that the war has begun, you show up, not to fight dirty, but to fight divine, to walk with integrity, with fire in your lungs and clarity in your heart. Because when the judges call, when the moment comes where truth is laid bare, you don't just speak, you roar. This is what they feared. This is why they tried to kill your name before they ever faced your face. Because deep down they knew your presence changes things. Your resilience rewrites narratives. Your very breath unsettles demons. And now, it's too late to undo what they've done. Now the battle lines are drawn. But this isn't the time to crumble. This is the time to conquer. You are not defined by what they did. You are defined by how you rise. And your rise will not be quiet. Your rise will not be soft. It will be the sound of chains breaking, of doubt fleeing, of rooms being filled with truth no one expected. They asked for a judge, but they forgot you were born with justice in your bones. You don't need to defend yourself with anger. You defend yourself with action, with excellence, with endurance. Let the fire burn. Let it refine you. Let it reveal you. Because when they went to war behind your name, they wrote a chapter, but they forgot you are the author. And this story is just beginning. So hold your head high, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Look into the eyes of those who doubted you, not to shame them, but to show them who you really are. The war they started behind your name will become the fuel that elevates your purpose. And when the judge finally shows up, when the truth finally stands tall, you won't need to shout. Your life will speak loud enough. You see, they only call for a judge when the fire they lit gets too big to control. When the words they whispered catch wind and turn into storms they can't outrun. They built the war with stories, with looks, with silence. They didn't swing swords. They planted seeds of doubt. They didn't shout. They smirked. They didn't confront you. They tried to collapse you from the shadows, but they underestimated the foundation you were built on. You didn't survive this long by accident. You didn't fight this far just to fall, because somebody couldn't say your name without choking on their own insecurities. This world will not always reward your truth. Sometimes it will punish it. Sometimes the brightest fire draws the most arrows, and the ones who fear your light will be the first to question your motives. They will twist what you said, magnify what you didn't say, replay moments out of context to keep others confused, because the more clarity you bring, the less control they have. But clarity doesn't need approval, it needs courage, and you have that. Not the loud, arrogant kind, but the quiet, rooted kind. The kind that doesn't ask for applause. The kind that moves mountains silently. The kind that doesn't bend, even when everything else does. And now, they want to judge. They want the robes and the gavel and the order in the court. But life doesn't judge in robes. It judges in time, in proof, in consistency. And you, if you stay the course, will outlast every lie. You will walk through fire and not even smell like smoke. Because when the truth is your weapon, you don't need to swing. You need only to stand. You're not here to react. You're here to respond with power, with presence, with purpose. You're here to remind them that you are not the fragile version they remembered. You're the refined version they never expected. The version who learned how to lose, how to bleed, how to be betrayed, and still not become bitter. That's the war they didn't see coming, because they counted on your weakness. But all they did was reveal your strength. Let them watch. Let them wonder. Let them whisper. Because every time they speak your name, they remind the world that you mattered. Every time they gather in secret, they confirm your presence still unsettles them. And when they finally stand before the judge of truth, not in court, but in consequence, they will answer for the battle they started, for the fire they tried to set, for the damage they thought would destroy you. But by then, you'll already be walking in peace. Not because the war ended, but because you rose above it. And you didn't rise alone. You rose with the weight of every betrayal on your back. You rose with the echoes of silence in your ears. You rose with tears in your eyes and steel in your spine. And you rose because something inside you said, "I'm not done yet." Something whispered in the ashes, "This is not the end. This is the unveiling." So now you stand, wiser, sharper, quieter. Not because you're scared, but because you're dangerous now. Dangerous to lies, dangerous to darkness, dangerous to anyone who thought they could control your story without consulting your spirit. And now the judge doesn't come to you. The judge comes for them, not to punish, but to reveal. Because truth is the most powerful revealer in the world. And once it shows up, it doesn't knock. It kicks doors open. It doesn't whisper. It roars. And when that truth finally shows its face, when the veil drops and everything is exposed, you won't need to say a word. Because your endurance, your silence, your discipline, your refusal to fold, that will be your testimony. And hear me now, you don't rise for revenge. You rise for redemption. You rise because staying down would have confirmed the lies. You rise because your future is louder than their fear. You rise because someone needs to see that it's possible, that you can lose everything and still rebuild, that you can be misrepresented and still move forward, that you can be misunderstood and still carry yourself with dignity, that you can be fought and not become a fighter, but a finisher. Somebody went to war behind your name, and they thought that was the end, but that was the beginning of your revelation, the beginning of your awakening, the beginning of your rise. Because sometimes war is what wakes the warrior. Sometimes attack is what activates purpose. Sometimes betrayal is what builds character. And sometimes pain is what polishes power. Don't curse the war, thank it. Because it showed you who you are. It showed you who they are. And it showed you who never deserved a seat at your table. Let them keep their whispers. Let them keep their drama. You're building something now, something sacred, something they can't touch because they didn't help build it, something that only rises in people who have faced the fire and didn't flinch. They said you were finished, but now they're calling for a judge. They need someone to justify their actions, to cover their cracks, to silence their guilt. But the truth is, you were never the problem. You were the mirror. And what they saw in you, they hated in themselves. That's why they tried to destroy it. But mirrors don't break from lies. They break from impact. And you're still whole. You're still standing. You're still moving. And that is the most terrifying thing they've ever seen, because it means your purpose isn't tied to their permission. Your future isn't tied to their failure. Your value isn't tied to their voice. So walk forward now, not with fear, but with fire. Not with revenge, but with revelation. That your scars are not your shame, they are your signatures. That your silence was never weakness, it was wisdom. That your name, though dragged, now carries weight. That the war they started behind your back only proved that your back was strong enough to carry the truth when they couldn't handle it. And now, let them bring the judge. Let the room fall silent. Let the evidence speak. Because everything they did to break you only built you. Every word they used to wound you only strengthened your skin. And every eye that watched you fall will now watch you rise. Not just because you were right, but because you were real. This is your moment now, not to clap back, but to climb. Not to fight in the dirt, but to stand above it. Not to trade insult for insult, but to become the example they never saw coming. Because when somebody goes to war behind your name, they forget one thing. Your name isn't theirs to carry. It was always meant for greatness. And now you walk in it, fully, unapologetically, unshaken, unstoppable. You've come this far, not by chance, not by favor, but by force of will, by the quiet refusal to give up when everything around you gave you a reason to. The war that was started in your name wasn't just a test of your reputation, it was a test of your identity. They wanted to see if what they heard about you was louder than what was true about you. And for a moment, maybe even you questioned it. That's what war does. It makes you doubt your own name. It makes you ask, was I wrong? Am I really who I thought I was? But now you know better. Now you've seen what they meant for harm, only sharpened your edge. What they meant to humiliate only humbled your ego and then rebuilt your strength. What they meant to bury you only reminded you you were never seedless. You were soil and you were power and you were patience. And now, what was once planted in shadows has broken through the surface with roots too deep to be pulled up again. Some of them wanted you to break, just so they wouldn't have to bend. They wanted to erase your progress so they wouldn't feel convicted by their own laziness. They didn't want to watch you rise. They wanted to chain you to where they stayed. Because when you started moving, they had to confront what they were avoiding. That's why they didn't attack your actions. They attacked your name. Because it wasn't about what you did. It was about who you are becoming. And now that the fire has burned, now that the dust has settled, they're left facing something more terrifying than any lie they spread. Your peace. Because peace, after war, is louder than any defense. It means you've made it through. It means the worst they threw wasn't enough. It means you are no longer reacting. You are reigning. Let them call the judge. Let them gather the crowd. Let them replay every false scene, every edited story, every twisted motive. You won't interrupt them. You don't need to, because the life you're building now speaks louder than any defense you could offer. Let them measure your past if they want, but they'll have to use a different scale for your future, because the version of you they tried to crucify, that version already died. This one, this risen one, they don't know how to face that. You see, the real power is not found in revenge, not in returning fire. The real power is found in restraint, in letting life vindicate you, in letting your work, your walk, your ways prove them wrong, without you ever lowering yourself to prove them anything. That's the kind of power that frightens the petty, because you're no longer triggered, you're transformed. You're no longer defending, you're demonstrating. And when that judge arrives, whether in this life or in consequence, whether in truth revealed or peace restored, remember, you are not on trial, you never were. What was on trial was your silence, your integrity, your endurance, and all of it stood strong. Somebody went to war behind your name, but now that name is stronger than ever. And you will walk into the rooms they tried to shut for you. You will be welcomed by hands that once pointed. You will sit at tables they tried to clear of your presence, and you will be invited. Because now, even those who doubted you are learning one by one. Fireproof people don't burn in gossip, they rise in it. You didn't just survive, you outlived it. You didn't just recover, you rebuilt. And you didn't just return, you rose with more focus, more clarity, and more peace than they ever expected. So now what? Now you walk, not as someone seeking approval, not as someone trying to win them back, but as someone who has learned the quiet art of walking through flames without shouting, without stumbling, and without losing your soul. Let them keep watching. Let them keep whispering. Because this chapter isn't for them. It's for the ones watching in silence. The ones who saw you fall, but never saw you quit. The ones who are fighting wars of their own behind names that don't deserve it. Let them hear your story, not for drama, not for pity, but for power. Because somebody out there is losing hope. Somebody out there thinks this war will define them. But when they see you, when they hear what you came through, when they see how high you've climbed after how low they tried to bury you, they'll believe again, not in you, in themselves. And that, right there, is the victory no war can take. You were always the proof they were afraid of. Now you're the legacy they can't erase. So let them call the judge. Let them gather the evidence. Let them try and rewrite the story. Because you're already writing the ending, and it doesn't end in a courtroom. It ends in a coronation. You're not on trial, you're on throne. And from here on out, your name isn't just remembered, it's respected. So now this is where the story closes, not with a whisper, not with an apology, but with the declaration. Your name is not fragile. It is not disposable. It is not something to be toyed with in the mouths of those who never carried the weight of your battles. Your name is built on sleepless nights, on unspoken pain, on countless moments of resistance where nobody else saw, but you still stood. And yes, somebody went to war behind your name, but they forgot who they were dealing with. They forgot that you are not made of glass, you are made of grit. They forgot that you do not run from fire, you rise from it. They forgot that you are not moved by the crowd, you are moved by calling. And calling always speaks louder than criticism. You are not here to beg for a seat, you are here to build the table. You are not here to argue with rumors, you are here to become undeniable. You are not here to win small battles, you are here to win the war within. Because once you conquer that, No one on the outside can touch you again. So let the judge come. Let truth stand tall. Let every storm they sent your way become the wind that now lifts your wings. You are no longer trying to prove who you are. You're too busy becoming it. You're too focused, too refined, too awakened. Let them talk. Let them rewind the past. You're already 10 steps ahead, building what they never saw coming. The war they started, it wasn't your destruction, it was your unveiling. And now the world doesn't just know your name, it remembers it. Because when you walk through the fire they meant to burn you, unchanged, unbent, and unshaken, you don't just survive, you make history.